2 years ago, a game would release that would breathe new life into a game that, at this point, was losing relevance. That being DDLC. After over 3.5 years from the original release, DDLC Plus would hit the scene, being just as beloved as the original, right? The original DDLC was highly praised for being one of the most unique psychological horror games ever made. Hell, I used to make mods for it. And no, I won't be making any more. Stop asking me. And for this Plus game to basically be a definitive version of DDLC, as well as bringing the game to consoles, things were looking really good. However, to me at least, it felt like a disappointment. Shortly after the game was initially released, I made a video review of the game, and you don't even have to watch the video, but based on the title, I wasn't impressed. But it's been 2 years since it came out, and after playing it on PC, Switch, PS5, and PS4, and Xbox, I think it's time to finally reevaluate this game. Was I too harsh on DDLC Plus at first? Or was I correct in thinking this was a big disappointment? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. But before we begin, I should mention that spoilers will be in this video. DDLC is a game that thrives off of not being spoiled on your first playthrough, so if you haven't played or seen the game, you need to consider doing that before watching this. But with all that finally said, it's time to take a deep dive into Doki Doki Literature Club Plus. Honestly, there's not really much I have to say for this. Considering this game is basically a definitive version of DDLC, it's obvious that it's kept pretty much the same as it was in the original. While I could see some people annoyed that they didn't add more to the base game, I'm perfectly fine with this, as if they added more scenes and whatnot, it would have just been filler and didn't need to exist. And if you wanted extra scenes, that's what the side stories are, but I'll get to those later. The basic game still plays out the same way as it did before, except every time you start up DDLC Plus, you'll be taken to a desktop where you can find various tabs for functions such as the mail, when you receive emails in the game, pictures and music you obtain, and files, which is basically how you can access the files for DDLC to manipulate the game. In the original on PC, you would literally have to go into the files on your computer in order to progress the story, but since Plus was made for consoles and you can't really access system files as easily, they create a desktop in-game where you can do so. Now, I do understand that this isn't anywhere near as interesting and fourth wall breaking as it was in the original, but to be fair, it doesn't hurt too much. The story is still as great as it was before, and I'm at least glad there isn't much difference from the original. Honestly, the base game would be enough to justify the purchase just for its quality. However, there is more to the game than that. So, let's take a look at the side stories I mentioned earlier, as these were the main new addition to DDLC Plus. So I guess the side stories were the answer to more content, so we ended up with 6 of these as well as a bonus final one, painting a picture of how the Literature Club came to be. And honestly, they're fine. They do the job, but they just feel kinda whatever to me. At least these have new music and great art at the end of each pair of these stories, but I feel like they don't do that much for me at all. Pretty much almost all of the stories involve two characters that are very different from one another, having conflict because of their different perspectives, with the two resolving it in their second side story. While it isn't inherently a bad concept, the same setup and whatnot gets reused many times for many pairs without enough difference, except for maybe Monika and Sayori's, or maybe Yuri and Natsuki's. And I understand the point of these is to show how each pair grows closer to one another, but they could have at least had some combinations play out differently. Another thing I don't like about them is how they tend to abandon the darker theme of the original DDLC and instead rely on either being happy more than anything or sad more than anything. Again, that isn't a bad thing, but I would have liked if some of the stories got a bit more on the dark side, if only for a little bit. Overall, I think the side stories are okay, but you don't even have to play the game in order to see them, as you can just watch them online, since the only interaction you get from them is just hitting the button to forward the text. part of me feels like they were only doing this just for shipping and fan service. And if that was truly the case, I wish they were more unique. I know there's some significance in the lore, but to be completely honest, I never caught up with that stuff. One final thing on the side stories is, I honestly feel like mods have done these better. I don't want to bash these too hard, but like, there's mods out there that have done so much more than the official content has done. Let that sink in. Mods made by fans of DDLC are more in-depth and interesting than official creations. Yeah. Now that I've talked about the main two parts of the game, now it's time to talk about everything else the game offers. I'll start off with the other stuff you can go through and unlock, starting with the pictures, and I personally love this, as not only does it give you a bunch of images that can be fun to look at, even early concept art, but almost all of them have to be unlocked by doing certain objectives in the base game. I love this as it gives you something to work toward, and can be quite fun to unlock some of these. I also really like the new music that was added to the game, as several new songs were made, with all of them at least being pretty solid. Songs like Dusk, Let's Teamwork, and Piece by Piece are among some of my new favorite songs in the game. It's so good. And that's pretty much all of the new stuff that was added, and while all of that was great, there's one teeny tiny problem. You see, when the original DDLC originally came out, it had a $10 DLC called the DDLC Fan Pack, where you can get all the stuff I mentioned before, but could even get more concept sketches as well as an entire digital booklet that told you about the development of the game, which this is not in Plus. To me, this is one of the most unforgivable sins of this game, as not only does this not make Plus the definitive version anymore, because it doesn't include everything from the original, including DLC, but also would have been so easy to include. They could have just had an extra tab on the main menu for it. Why didn't they include it? Seriously, what were they thinking? DDLC Plus was meant to be a definitive version of the game, right? So why wasn't the first thought, okay, include all the base game and DLC stuff? What were they thinking? Also, and I do want to just throw this out there, but no animated intro, not even a short one. Seriously, every game of this kind has an intro. They could have at least had a shorter one. And before you say, oh, they don't know how to do that, there's plenty of animators on YouTube that have recreated the game in animated form pretty well. Just hire one of them. Well, at least the physical version comes with some cool stuff, I guess. Well, with that all said, I think it's time to finally conclude this video. Finally making it to the end of the video, I asked myself the question, was this game truly disappointing? And to answer that, yes. Yes, it does. While the game has love put into it in certain places, like the new art, new music, as well as getting the game to work on the Unity engine, I feel like they could have done a lot more. If this came out in 2018 or even 2019, I think it would have done much better. I would have understood more. But we had to wait almost 4 years. 4 years for this, which I think was just way too long of a wait. Plus, it's supposed to be the definitive version of DDLC, but number 1, doesn't include everything from the fan pack, and number 2, feels almost completely untouched. I get that they wouldn't want to change the base game that much, but they could have at least redesigned the UI to look a little more stylish. As for the side stories, you don't even have to buy the game to even experience them, and even so, they just feel tame compared to what mods have done. At the end of the day, I feel that this game was a disappointment. But do I think this is a bad game? No. Hell no. I can complain about this game for quite a bit, but I don't think the game is genuinely bad, as it still delivers the original DDLC in a great way. Honestly, they could have just ported the original to consoles and called it a day, but they decided to add more stuff, which I will give them props for, even if some of the additions they made weren't kind of whatever. Now, do I recommend playing DDLC Plus? Well, it depends on what kind of player you are. If you're somebody that hasn't played the original and mostly play it on consoles, then by all means play Plus, as even if you don't care for the extra content, you can still get quite a thrill from the original base game. And if you have already played the original, then I would only consider buying it if you just want to support the devs. So, to wrap up my thoughts on this game in one sentence, DDLC Plus contains a superb masterpiece inside of a rather average definitive edition. It's still good, even if the stuff surrounding it isn't always the best. And I think that's going to be the end of the video. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. I do want to also again mention I'm not doing DDLC mods anymore. Please stop asking. I mentioned it in my plan for 2023 video. Don't count on it. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. I've got some other stuff on the way, but I don't have a lot for July just because I've got some schoolwork to do because college, summer class for college, and it's kind of a pain, so I'm gonna kind of go a little bit light. I'll still have my pickups video for May and June, but there isn't gonna be a lot, spoiler alert, but that video will come out relatively soon, but yeah. Thank you guys for watching the video. Let me know in the comment section what you guys think of DDLC Plus, and consider sharing the video so more people can see it. Yeah, I will see you guys next time. Peace out and take care.